Hello and welcome to the Average Lockdown. Join us as we go on a rambling discussion of all things gaming. Hello, I'm Ben.
I'm Sven.
I'm Lee.
And I'm Gary's evil Russian cousin.
So this is episode 2 of our lockdown chat cast pod paint cast build along at home.
I should get on that at some point.
I'm having a drink along tonight, lads. Sorry.
Drink responsibly.
No.
Alright, fair enough, and don't.
It's irresponsible not to get as much
When did
drink
you get
as
so
you want.
rebellious?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, you have no idea.
Hang on, I just realised I'm feeling a bit left out here, lads. There we go, that's
There we
better.
go. It's the Average Tabletop Gamer sponsored by Specsavers.
It's alright, I only need gaps for saying things, so...
If
You
you're
were
if you're
You were giving
listening,
it full on
I was gonna say
Alan Wicker realness there, Lee.
if you're listening to the audio version of this, then just be aware that we've all put glasses on, so or watch the video version. So it is on
Continuity error.
it is on SoundCloud now as well. So if you don't want to look at us and just want to listen, you can go to SoundCloud. I'll put a link below in the description.
Why wouldn't
I mean,
people
why
want to
would
look
you
at us
want
though?
to do that?
We
Why
are
would you want to only listen?
Well, exactly.
I keep telling people, I don't think they believe me, but I am delicious. I really am.
Like an apple.
Gone bad, yeah.
I can't believe we've strayed off track so quickly into this already again.
Well, I haven't spoken to you for ages because I've been otherwise engaged for the past few weeks.
That's
on
a good
Tuesday.
point. So
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah, you've not been doing well, have you, mate?
No.
I
My
know.
hobbying's been going all right.
It's nice to have you back, Gary.
Thank you.
I know you listened to last week, so you kind of heard us ramble on a bit about what we've been getting up to in lockdown, and we obviously mentioned your Titans and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else you've been doing, like hobby-wise. Well, we've been.
To be honest, I think I've been looking at like all those unfinished projects, kind of like rather than looking at something brand new, because the trap we fall into is that every hobbyist falls into is we go like magpies, going ooh shiny stuff, and so I've completely went right. Okay, what do I love? What was my favourite thing that I used to play the most? Back in the early days of me gaming at workshop, back in my heyday in the mid-90s, was second edition Space Marine, which I loved playing.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautifully simple game system. You play it off the quick rules sheet, but the close combat was a bit poo. That was the only weakness with it, but it was a fantastic game. The sweep and the scale of it and the way it worked was fantastic. So I've just been focused on Adeptus Titanicus. I've got my Reaver Titan built. I do deeply regret going for a white colour scheme because when I looked at it, I was kind of like, it just looked unfinished. But once I added the hazard markings and I've done some house heraldry, I've not done transfers yet, but I've done some battle damage. Actually, I'm really chuffed and it's come out really well.
It was really crisp. I'll give you that. It was like when you first put those pictures up, it was pow. Here's white. I have made white. No one else will ever make white as this again.
I think you were sponsored by some sort of major washing machine commercial.
Yeah, it's sponsored by Colgate. Yeah,
it was painful, to be honest. That's a lot of coats white, which I think you'd said, Ben, about maybe try toning it down with the contrast, and I did. I'd used Apothecary White, nothing worked. It just white is an unforgiving colour on such a wide expanse of an area.
I found that this week. So I had some of the Mark II clone troopers.
Oh yeah.
Bought a box of them that I was going to do up. And I tried, I used the airbrush and I tried to get them to be blue, and it just wasn't working. And so I remember, hopefully friend of the show, Savastro's painting channel, that he'd done some. So I went back and looked at what he did. Now he's done a really rough and ready, by his standards, they're still bloody gorgeous. For clone troopers and stormtroopers, but what he's done is his mix is 3 parts apothecary white, 1 part black Templar, 3 parts contrast medium, and some flow improver, and he's made this massive great jar of it, and he just maybe that big, who knows, it just keeps on the side, and so I'll mix some of that up, strip these clone troopers down, re-undercoated them, and then put this over the top, and it's like bang, they're done. Absolutely spot on.
The thing is, I see a lot of Star Wars Legion stuff that people are painting, especially the Imperial stuff, and I'll be honest, the white's just too, it's too severe. Hear me out on this. It's because when you actually look at them in the movies, it's a clean white. Even when there's been a bit of battle damage, it's a very clean white, and there's not a lot of shade. So when I'm seeing things with a lot of definition, it's painted well, but it's not right. So when I'm looking at it, when I want to do those, I'm going to be focusing on the white just being relatively clean, low highlights, and just because it's very hard not to look at something and do block colours. So things like that Batman the Animated Series Kickstarter that was out recently. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. We talked about it, didn't we? We talked about the colouring.
I was deeply unimpressed with the figures. But when I saw them painted it, and they were painted as if they were a comic shell, a cartoon cell, beautiful, just plain colour. But it's so hard to get that plain colour to work well.
I think
absolutely.
For me, I still have to finish Legion, and we still have to start a new campaign with a GM that nobody hits.
Imperial Assault.
Imperial Assault, yeah. I mean, when I painted my first Stormtroopers on that, I think you're quite right, Gary. I think you try and do Grimdark, and then you realise it just doesn't look right. So you've got to... That's why I've kind of went with the shiny plastic, even the Imperial Guard in Imperial Assault. It was a simple paint job. Everything was painted red, and the helmet was glossed. And it was like a little bit of recessing, red ink in the recess. Other than that, if I'd done anything more to it, they would have looked dirty and wrong, and not like in keeping with what they're supposed to look like in the film, Whereas the ATST, right, that sprayed again. It was another simple grey with weathering, and that was it. No metalwork or anything like that, because it looked like that in the film.
Yeah. But I think with the Star Wars, like the Imperial Assault and Legion especially, you've got to make that choice really early on, whether you're going to go film aesthetic or realistic aesthetic.
Or comic book.
So are you going to do, a dirty white, lived in, looks like it would do, or are you going to do that ultra clean movie look that you get, with that high gloss finish and that kind of thing. And I know it's a really difficult aesthetic to capture and get right either way, because both ways look wrong.
And I think it's getting that thing of when it's like when I painted my Imperial Knights, I was like, I'm happy with them, and then I painted the Titan, I was like, it's just not working. But then I realised I'm not going to be painting a lot of Titans. I've got my other Reaver Titan built. That's one of my hobby projects I did over the weekend. I built my other Reaver Titan, and I built my 2 Warhound Titans, and I did my magnetising. And it was just realising the fact that I'm only going to paint a handful of Titans, not a thing more. So actually, the time I'm investing, I would spend a lot more if I was doing painting Legion. There's a lot more white to paint. I'd spend a lot more doing them. So I realised I was just fooling myself, thinking this is a lot of hard work, and it was feeling like a bit of a grind. But when I got partway through, I realised there's not a lot of this to do. And I think Huss had mentioned that in one of the people on the 2D20 Facebook group had said, one of my other imaginary friends, he'd said, he'd actually said,
fessed up, we got him.
Yeah. Well, he'd said, I'm only going to paint 2 Warlord Titans, so I'm quite happy to spend a lot of time on them. And I was like, do you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think I've took that on board.
Yeah, it's time and investment, isn't it? When we're so used to painting up really big units of stuff, like when we're doing bolt action,
Yeah.
You're doing 3, 4, 5 units of anything up to, well, you've got Russians, haven't you now? So, and I know they haven't been touched yet. Because you made a mistake in your choices there, didn't you? You made a life choice.
I've got the hat.
In 20 books and 10 rifles.
Yeah.
Honestly, man. The thing is, by the same token, it's one of those where one of the things decisions I'd made, and this is the thing about planning that army. It's all built, it's all ready to go, and I'd made the decision. I am going to paint this army really Billy basic. I'm not actually going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to paint it to a gaming standard, because one of the problems I have is I will go too far in my painting. People will look at my armies and go, they're really, really nice, but no one really looks at it. They're only going to pick up the sergeants and go, it's lovely. Everything else gets ignored.
I just say it's really, really nice to bother look at it. So, you know.
I was just, when I got back into things, like going back 5 years or so now, roughly, is about that, when I started getting back into the hobby, I was still painting to shop standard.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's something that those of us that work there and were taught a certain way, I think it's intrinsic in how we approach the hobby and approach the minis in the hobby.
I was never lumbered with that problem, you see, so I've never painted to shop standard. So
actually, it used to be quite interesting in workshop, and it was a bit of an odd. You'd go to national managers meetings, and it'd be interesting for me to go along. And you talk about people go, well, there's cabinet standard, there's table standard, then there's intro gaming standard. The intro gaming standard was paint them terrible because they're just going to get nicked by little scaffy kids anyway.
Or they're going to have like 9 layers of purity seal or whatever on them, like every other weekend when you touch them up and then re-varnish them, because, as you say, they're going to get thrown across the room by some chav kid one Saturday.
Well, I think the thing is, though, but I certainly never encouraged that, where it's like, the aesthetic was, paint these as a really nice model. They should be really evocative and really interesting. And then people have the attitude of, like, just slap some paint on. It's just... And I think that's a thing you get with armies as well. You get the point where you just go, I've painted them enough, I'm going to leave them there. And I don't think people do that enough.
I think you just got to know your limitations as well. I mean, going back to the shop armies, so one of the first things I ever had to paint for a table in workshop was when Mordheim was released. So I was one of the lucky people that got to go to the Carlisle shop, to sit in the stockroom above the Carlisle store and have our okay, here's a day's training on what is Mordheim, how do you sell Mordheim, you know, what's the story behind the game, how do you build the models, how do you paint them, and we were showing this, how you can paint a human warband in 8 minutes. That was it, basically. And so we got handed like some copies of the game and that, and sent back to the shop, and so Gary said to me, okay, since I was key time, you've got a couple of days during the week, can you paint up the 2 warbands for the intro table? And I spent, because again, I'd not been at workshop that long, and I'd spent like 3 whole days and nights just sitting, painting this human warband and this Skaven warband to what I considered the best of my ability. Took them in the Saturday morning, like the day of release, in the little case, and Gary was like, they're alright. And then he sat at the table, and 10 minutes later he turned around and he just touched them up. And I was just like, yeah, okay, in 10 minutes he's just touched them up into a far better standard I can ever make. So there was intro game standard, and then there was Sven paints them up, and then Gary touches them up to intro game standard.
Is that why your nickname at the shop was Base Coat?
Wasn't it recently again with Imperial Assault, where I did a Jawa and Gary did another Jawa as well, so because Gary's helped us out on a few of the miniatures, because there's quite a few of them, and then you offered to do mine as well again. It's like, no, it's fine, mate.
If a job's worth doing, just say.
Oh, you're right, I
think for me though, what that comes from is when I started at workshop, we had to paint armies for Games Day in a short period of time to a bloody good standard. And we had a 6,000 point Orc and Goblin army was the first thing I had to break into painting. And it was hellish. And we used to get sent armies from other shops. Because we were so good at what we did, we would get sent armies from other shops where my old area manager, Ian Hensel, what a legend, he would bring figures from other shops and go, can you touch these up? These are terrible. Absolutely. And it'd be absolute. Next time we come, a couple of weeks later, he'd come and like, taking away cases full of models, and he used to steal stuff from our cabinets to put in other people's cabinets, and we'd got used to painting well quickly, and it was quite forgiving. But the old workshop style led itself to that. I think the new painting that you see for workshop, and the two thin coats of everything with Duncan and all this kind of stuff. I think there's some brilliant stuff out there, but there's a lot to be said for getting a really good base coat on with a nice shade and then a bit of a highlight, and then you can get some nice effects. And I think people have got to this. You need to do zenithal highlighting with an airbrush first. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. You've got to do that. And I look at them and just go, do you know if you just slap some red on and give it a wash, it'd be the same thing.
So
I think it's
when I started,
there you go, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, when I started at workshop, I was lucky enough to start at a shop opening. There's when they were opening Coventry, and I got the key time role before the shop was open. In fairness, so while they were doing the fit out and things like this, we had that week leading up to open to get armies ready.
Yeah.
So I was in the shop every day painting up a Dark Angel army that we did, and I did a 2,000 point Dark Angel, and it went in the cabinet. And Chris Bone, legend, but he came in and saw it and offered me a job at the paint studio.
Nice.
And I was like, I'm 15 going on 16. I'm not moving to Nottingham at this kind of a. Do you know? Almost wish I had gone, but you're right, and that was, I hadn't been painting for very long, and it was just a simple case of spray and black, coat of green, coat of a brighter green, bit of shade, done, and then I think it was even before transfers, or maybe the beginning of transfers.
I think transfers started to emerge the very early 90s.
This was pre-1990. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, transfers were.
This is the distant past.
You had some very basic rudimentary transfers in about 87, 88, 89. That was about it.
Yeah, it was around then. So,
I think as well as the big thing for me that comes across is what Sven's saying is he'd done a really good paint job, and it wasn't me decrying what he'd done. I knew because of my experience, and there's a confidence where you just go, if I just do this, that'll take that to that next level, and it's really quick.
Yeah.
But I'd teach that to people. I'd happily go, oh, well, this is how you do this. Just go away and practice it. Now, I know I've talked about doing this for the channel, but I really need to sort out some paint videos. And I sound like a broken record for doing it. But there's something to be said where I look at Darren Latham's painting channel on YouTube, and it's beautiful. And it's really great. And the same for Duncan, there's some really nice stuff on there. However, the way that they're using 5, 6, 7 types of paint and mixes of paints to get an effect where I'm thinking it looks a bit over-engineered, but I understand it and they get a nice effect. I think there's something to be said for a very basic standard and understand how to use your brush, how to the things to ignore on a model and the things to pay attention to that have the biggest impact.
I mean, it's
I think
the basic things
the thing
as well.
that's really... Sorry, Lee.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's the basic things as well. I mean, obviously the conversation that we had last week, I was sitting... Well, obviously it wasn't pointing... The camera wasn't pointing at me for a change, so I'm sure it's gone down in your estimations of me now. But it was just pointing at me painting these Thousand Suns rubric marines for the Scarab cult guys even. And the reason why it wasn't so much of a chore was literally because I was using, as I was saying on the channel, I was using the Lamia medium to thin down the paint. So the paint was being not so much dragged onto the model, it was flowing onto the model. It's going on a nice even paint, and it makes the job so much easier. Whereas if you just go straight from the pot, you get sick after the first minute and a half, of just putting stuff on. Like you say, how do you use your brush? How do you hold, well, not so much hold it, but how do you float to the model,
Well, even Sven can tell you, back when we were doing more time, so for example, where he'd done really great basic colours on the models, and I'd say the metallics he'd done over the brown, fantastic. I knew that if there was an ink went over that and could float in the recess, it'd work really well. And that's one of the days where, and Sven can tell you, we used to use a little bit of PVA in the old inks before these modern washes came along. We put a touch of PVA in, just a little dab of it, and with water, and that would then the density that would create within the fluid meant it settled in the recesses brilliantly, and it gave you a great coating.
So I think the thing that's missing, because I watch a lot of painting stuff on YouTube. Always wanted to find a new tip or trick, something like that. The Duncan's how to use contrast paints from a couple of weeks ago. Brilliant video, absolutely superb. If you've not seen it, recommend it highly.
The one with the German, is it the German Grenadier he did with contrasts?
No. This was it was like a 10-minute how to use contrast paints and get the most from them.
Oh, yes, on the Ultramarine. Sorry, yes.
Yeah. Yes, it's brilliant. So clever. And again, you kind of look at it and just go, oh yeah, actually that makes perfect sense. But what's missing is there's no one doing basic paint.
Yeah.
You look at everybody and like watching this Clone Troopers one from Sir Astro, he gets to a point and goes, and there you go, that is a perfectly good tabletop standard. Now, if you want to take it higher, and then you've got Next Level Painting who does the same again, and you've got, all these channels, they're all about taking it to that next level, taking it to that one step above what you need, where no one is just sitting there and going, right, here you go, you've got a bunch of Space Wolves, how to get them on the table looking decent.
Yeah, even batch painting a unit, has got a certain thing to it, or like Sven harking back to the Mordheim warbands. And I remember our Skaven on that table were really, really nice. They were lovely little figures. Our Clanessian Night Runners and Gutter Runners we'd done were fantastic. They were really well done. Really nice little touches. The pink really popped on the skin. We got the brown right on the fur, contrasted against and even just the colour choice of we're going to use the dwarf flesh with brown fur because they've got black cloaks on, and we need the flesh part, the Skaven part of the model, to pop against the clothing. So understanding how the colours are going to work on a model, you can't take away. And there's loads of painters I took under my wing who were really raw and basic and could make really great armies, but just by sticking to the basics and doing really well, and even applying that to gaming tactics too. But I don't think it's a lost art. It's just one of those that it's out there, but we don't talk about it enough because we look at the Angel Heralduses of the world, and like I said, the Darren Lathams and all these people like Tommy Sewell, who's in 2D20, who's a phenomenal painter, and they're in that God-given talent tier, which I'm not in. I'm a very technical painter, really. You are, Lee, yeah.
I like what I do.
we like what you do too, as well.
I suppose you're right, isn't it, about the technique? I mean, for me, it's all about just having fun. And to me, the painting's a little adventure when you come up with a unit and you're proud of what they look like. And even if you're just proud of yourself, that's fantastic, and just having fun doing it. I mean, going back onto the Mordheim thing, it's the most, we played so many games. I mean, just a bit of background here, and obviously I think, Ben, we've discussed it, but you've never actually played there. We used to have a gaming room at my house called The Shed, which was a proper room that Gary used to come around, and Steve and Ian.
It's essentially a granny flat built on the back of your house, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we called it a shed, but it was carpeted, double glazed, had radiators, power lights, wallpaper, and
running down.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And it got a bit cramped with four big lads like us, especially when the door was shut and Gary had a curry. That was
don't need a curry.
But despite all the games of Kill Team that were played in there, Kill Team. All the games of 40k that were played in there, and even Warhammer to a certain extent, the most memorable games that we ever had in there was Mordheim. And that's because, little war bands were painted up just as we liked them. We put extra scene. We even had, me and Stephen had 2 mighty fortresses. So we used that as sort of in our wall to a castle.
Still have 2 mighty fortresses.
We still have in the shed, yeah. So we have these, we would basically have this wall. So we'd have the little houses inside the castle wall, just like they would, in a modern castle, a huge village within the walls. And it just set the scene. So you had little Skaven running around and battle-ruined fortresses and stuff like that, orcs. And they were the most memorable games because, like you see, the Skaven looked dirty, the warriors looked dirty, but had that the colours of the gang, you know, and it was just a beautiful game to play.
Well, it was the fact that Kel managed to spawn like a spoof 2 brilliant rolls. You know, when he went to like the rare trader thing after the games,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
like on his first 2 rolls when he had the cash, he managed to get hit 2. He had his Skaven warband had 2 Hockland long rifles in it.
Yeah,
Which
pretty
meant
much. I mean,
you just
it was...
sneak them in and get these killing fields, and that was you done because he just had you nailed from anywhere with these 2 Skaven Hockland long rifles. It was
Then
unbelievable.
again, I had Jethro, who, if you remember right, I armed him for some reason with the blunderbuss, and then we found out how deadly the blunderbuss was. And this guy was just a dreg in the first game. He became a hero by the end of the second one. He literally had gained that much experience in a single game. He killed that many things because people were running towards him. He essentially was putting down a 12-inch, 1-inch corridor and just going boom. And this guy was like one of my, you know, this guy with a blunderbuss, you know what I mean? And it was just, he was just so memorable because he did more damage than the senior heroes in the team.
But if you think about it though, I think the reason why skirmish games resonate to us is because you get more personal. You name the model, you give them a personality, you've got an idea behind them. But when you've got a 2,000 point Space Marine army, you've got squads and a character, and that gives you that feel for that army. But when you've got that skirmish game, you know, you spend that little bit more time on the models, so you put that little bit more effort in. So there's some of your better paying jobs across a basic unit, and you really chuff with them and you invest in them. And when you lose one of them in a campaign, it's devastating. And then you'll go, oh well, I don't want to lose him, so how do I get it back? And how do I get Jethro Mark II? You know,
exactly. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. You know, I love the grandeur of a big game. I love looking at a table with several thousand points on each side, knowing that you're only going to get 3 turns through.
Yeah.
And things like this. You know, I love that grand scale. And to me, that's kind of what this hobby is about. I'm much happier playing those big scale games than I am playing skirmish games.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoy skirmish games, but for me, it's all about, you know, boots on the table, as it were.
Well, I think because one of the first games, because I mean, Lee will tell you that growing up I was always more of a modeler than I was a gamer, and I used to buy all the workshop stuff, just paint the armies and build the stuff, and I'd never really played the games properly. I used to attempt to try and play like early editions of Blood Bowl and even Adeptus Titanicus and things like that, but I was never really gaming them that heavily, and I just amassed this huge, great big Space Marine, as in epic, you know, the Adeptus Titanicus and Space Marine first edition and second edition kind of armies up, tons of stuff, just through various GW mega sales, and then our Lee was running this games club at the YMCA nearby, and he just happened to say to me one day, you should bring your stuff along, and I went along, and with like a hockey kit bag full of epic stuff, all boxed up, and this guy who, as it happens, just lived down the road from us, saw the kit, and he was just like, okay, and he's like, what army do you play? And I was like, I don't, I just build and paint it. So he was like, right, I'll show you how to play. And I think because that game was the first one, I've always been drawn to the big, more epic battlefield games to play and look at. But I think recently I have been doing a lot more of the more skirmish style gaming, just because it's easier for me to paint and get stuff on the table. And I think because some of the games more recently, I went through a phase a couple of years back of just painting big bolt action armies, and I love the big bolt action armies. But then I got into 7TV, where there's so many nice characters, and I'm just painting little squads, little like casts of like 5 to 10 minis, and that's all I've painted recently. And I've got this 2,500-3,000 point German bolt action army, this Grenadier army sitting there ready to be started. It's all built, just got to be primed. And I'm slowly getting myself into the mindset of wanting to do big armies again, because I know we will at some point, you know, set up another 8x4 table and play one turn or something on Pegasus Bridge.
I think that's where wargaming will come in, and It tests what you want out of the game. So I think most people will cut their teeth typically on Warhammer 40,000 or Age of Sigmar. They'll collect an army that's around 100 or so models, maybe 150 models, go through all the painting of it, building of it, forming these units, and they'll do that. And it's quite a challenge. But I think it's one of those where when you get to that point as a gamer, when, this is no belittling of younger gamers by any stretch of the imagination, when you mature a little bit more, you think, I want my biggest sweeping scale games to be bigger. Don't just want to field 3 Lehman Russ tanks, because the thing for me is when I look at current workshop gaming for, like, say, 40k, where you're encouraged to field an army that's 2 or 3 knights, or an Imperial Guard army that's got a smattering of infantry and a couple of super heavies and a couple of tanks, and that's your army. I'm like, well, actually, I want to scale that up. I actually want to play with whole squadrons and companies of tanks, and the only way I can do that is with smaller models. And I think it's just having the ability to do that in gaming. It's quite good to do. I just don't think we get the diversity at the popular levels. I think Workshop have got its skill now. It's great to see Titanics coming out, but the thing that I most wanted to see when I saw those Titans come out was I wanted the tanks and I wanted the infantry. I wanted the scale and the grandeur to leak out and to be a whole big thing. And that was that it was the sweep and majesty of a big game like that can only be captured with lots of smaller models on the same size 6x4. But back in the day, it used to be 8-foot tables. And I remember playing 6,000 games of Space Marine on an 8-foot table. Do you know what? There was a lot of models, but it wasn't that much when it was an 8-foot table.
Never felt over full.
No.
So
loads of manoeuvre.
Yeah. So the thing I've noticed from kind of my my wargaming friends in the LARP community, a lot of them, they have a game that they play. So the majority is 40k, and a lot of that is down to time. They play 40k. They only have time to play 40k, or they might expand out ever so slightly. But the majority of them are just single system gamers. I think we're very unusual in our kind of demographic and age group, in the fact that we are expansionist, and we do play a massive range of games compared to a lot of other people of our kind of demographic within the community.
There's a lot of the old stereotype, like you say. Stephen touched on it years ago, that I used to work in a YMCA, and there was a war games group there, and it was in a neighbouring town, and there was very much an us and them, and there was we're the old seasoned gamers and Napoleonics, and it was the you can't have that unit there because that unit didn't wear those boots with that camo in Operation Husky in 1943. And you're like, okay.
Well, that's
the
find mob that we always go on about.
I think
you find that Napoleon never deployed his troops in that box formation.
And then you had the other bunch, which are the younger lads who were to be fair, they were in their 30s and 20s and stuff like that. But they would go, right, I've got 3 Stormtrooper models, 4 Terminators, a Space Marine, and a Space Elf, and 2 copies of Space Hulk, and a blackboard between the 2. So we're playing a blind game against the other, and I'm going to and it was just fun. And these guys just literally played all these different games with their own rule sets. One of the most fantastic games. This is why I bought those Vikings as well. I recently bought a 60 plastic Vikings, which myself, Sven, sorry, even though he's my brother, I just call him Sven or Stephen, whatever, and Gary are going to build, and we're going to have little Viking Raider games, and the best game I ever played was on top of a...
Are you aware of that, Gary?
Yes.
Vaguely aware. He has agreed. I mean, I could just paint them first, and then Gary would say, I'll do them, finish them off for you. And but we had this board. These guys had these custom-made wooden boards that they put over the top of the snooker tables and the pool tables, and it turned them into big 6-foot, 8-foot gaming tables. Now, one of the boards they had was, I think it was 3/4 of it was blue, and there was like a beach paint on it. So they put all the beach scenery, and then they had a little island, and they just got a bag of gravel, and they built a causeway between this island, monks on it, and the area, and basically said, right, you're the Viking raiders.
Around here, isn't it?
Huh?
Little insensitive around it.
Yeah. So the Vikings turn up, and so here's me, this young wargamer, going, okay, what am I going to do? What's my objective? Whatever you fancy. The Normans are turned up in turn 3. So grab a chicken, pig, villager, and gold, kill a few monks, and then get out of Holy Island, or the Holy-ish Island. And it was just great fun because just basically running around, they had these little farmhouse chickens and pigs and stuff like that, and you just pick up a pig and get points for that and stuff. And it was just, it was a historic, but it was a fun historic game. There was none of this wouldn't have happened in that time and this, that, and the other. But, you know.
I was going to say, do you think the fact that we hop around games quite a bit, you know, you say we're multi-system gamers, is the fact that we're all long-time Games Workshop? Primarily, you know, we've all been schooled through Games Workshop, therefore we're used to every couple of years, well, not even every couple of years, every year there being something new coming out. And although a lot of it is basically a rotation of, you know, oh, well, here's Blood Bowl again, here's, you know, an epic level thing or whatever, but there's always been the different things that have come around, like Mordheim was completely different when it came out, and Necromunda was brilliant the first time. Gorkamorka and all the various other little bits. And so we're used to kind of jumping on games, especially I think through that 90s, 2000s era, or late 90s, late 2000s era, where Games Workshop were like kind of really pumping out
the box
little
rules
games.
plastic.
Yeah, little sideline games that went alongside Fantasy Battle / Age of Sigmar and 40k. Whereas some of the older gamers are very much, you know, I'm going to spend 20 years building up Wellingtons, Highland Dragoons from this one particular era, and they'll all be perfectly painted. And I'm going to build, because I need 6,000 pikemen to make this one formation or whatever. That's all I'm doing, and that's the thing I'm going to go down. Or maybe because, you know, they particularly enjoy sharps. That's all the game. Yeah. Whereas, you know, we're a lot more, I'm not going to say fickle, but we're used to, we're kind
hobby
of
fluid,
flighty.
We're like ADHD gamers because of Games Workshop.
Yeah, I think it's mainly to do with Kickstarter, actually.
Well, that helps at the minute.
I blame an awful lot of our flitting around from system to system on Kickstarter. Yeah. And some of the goodies that we found on there that have kind of led us down other paths. You know, 7TV from Kickstarter, and that's led us into skirmish gaming, which has kind of led us into the Rebellion publishing deal with Warlord, you know, so Rogue Trooper, Dread, and things like that. So I think, I put the blame firmly at Kickstarter's door.
I'll put the blame in disposable incomes. That's where I'll put it. We're at an age where, you know, we've got a little bit more cash.
What's a disposable income?
But it's the stuff you spend on the hobby after you've paid for everything else.
That's what that is. It's the stuff you spend on the hobby that you should have used to pay for other things.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Yeah. And I think you get that point where you can afford the things you want to do for your hobby, so you'll spend a little bit more, and you'll be a little bit more vicarious and frivolous with your purchases, and not a bad thing. It's just a case of we just feel we were a little bit unfinished in some areas, and I don't think it's necessarily bad because I'm really enjoying my game. I didn't game this often, to be quite honest. When I was, you know, even when I was running a Games Workshop store, you know, my personal game, it kind of like took a sideline. You got a bit like, it was kind of like you had a bit of a feast of hobby during your work day. So you go home and you're thinking, I've got to paint another army. It's like, oh my God. And it felt like a chore. Very taxing. And I think I'm at a point where it's like, my hobby stuff now is like, I'm enjoying what I do when I do it. And it's really good to do.
It's a hobby again.
Yeah. The one thing I'm really missing, and I think it's something that we don't take advantage of enough, is going to an FLGS and testing. So we spend money on new games, play them once, and it goes on the shelf. You know, never to see the light of day again, for want of a better phrase. Whereas I remember, you know, like back in workshop days, you'd go and try something. You know, you'd go and try a new game, or back when I was living down south, I had an FLGS, and I could go in there and play something. It wasn't just a case of spontaneously purchase, play once, put it away. And I think that's a trap that we've fallen into, is you know, spontaneously purchasing. Because you say we've got disposable income and no willpower. So
Yeah.
it's a case of that looks cool, buy it. Oh.
And I think the other thing is, though, for a lot of us, if you look at when you talk about friendly local game shop, I know we talk about Alistair and we go up to Blythe. It's a pokey little shop with way too much stuff in it. Can't really see the great stuff he's got, which is disappointing. But I know that's part of it's the space, but part of it's a hobby for him to run that store. But when you think about friendly local gaming stores, there ain't that many. And I think your friendly local gaming stores are the internet now. And that's where you go to, because you go for that bit of a bargain. They've generally got what you want. It's convenient. You can get it there. You can ask your mates to say, hey, check this out. And instead of waiting them to come around your house to have a look at your figures or waiting for a magazine to drop through the door, they're just clicking on a link on a smartphone. They're going, that's cool. I'm going to order it as well. Yeah. It's the same as when I see gangs of kids. Me and my missus will talk about this, where we'll say you'll see groups of kids, like 10 or 15 kids all hanging around a huge pack. And you're thinking, wow, that looks suspicious. And then you think, well, not really. It's the modern day of the smartphone. They're so interconnected. They'll go, do you want to meet here? Do you want to meet there? People connect up a lot more seamlessly. I think in a more connected world which we're in, I think that's probably why we're such hobby butterflies. Lee will go, ooh, look at this. We all look at it. At the end of the day, Sven's bought a starter pack. I've bought a set of figures, and Ben's bought the paints and the scenery. And there we go. We've started something new. And you'll do it.
Look what happened today with that new Katachan figure.
Yeah.
You know, here's a picture. Right, I'm contacting Alistair about 3 of them. You know, that's what we do. That's how we work. Do you think
you don't even collect the guard?
Yeah. No, I haven't got any guard figures. I got rid of my army last year. My army wasn't even Katachans. So you know.
I mean, at the minute I'm doing all right for like little supplies. I mean, today. Obviously, myself and somebody else of a great aid range was had our annual trip around the sun. Isn't that right, Ben? This last week, you and I, yes, yeah. Are
you about to go on about the fact that you got some stuff for your birthday?
Off me brother, if no less, as well.
Who would have thought?
He actually put some thought into this. So, from Crooked Dice arriving today was the paranormal investigators.
Exterminators.
Who you're going to call? Huh?
The paranormal exterminators.
Exterminators. Who are you going to
call?
You
want to mention that copyright there, Lee?
No, exactly. 2 people running around looking for Zool, or the gatekeeper or something.
The Harbingers, as they are.
The Harbingers, yes. A slimy little ghost type creature. And
he thought you had a Ghostbusters cast. Stop going on about it.
Hey, listen, I'm keeping it legal. You know what I mean? But apart from else, the other thing that I've been desperate because I had to order it because of the current lockdown situations is one of my favourite films outside of Star Wars, and one of my favourite films of all time is, of course, Jaws.
They need a bigger box.
Jaws.
Yeah. So, hang on. There we go.
Sharks. Thousands of them.
Sharks. So I've been waiting for this. Obviously, I've had it to open. So I was going to start opening this because there's little things as well. I thought we could all have a game, if not on video sometime. We can... it's the detail that they've put into it. Yeah, I've just trashed the place. I'll just show you this as well. It's even got on the rule book.
Now is not the time for an unboxing.
It's not an unboxing. Look at the cool stuff in the box. So yeah, I thought we could all have a game of Jaws, but that's like you say, it's one of my little diversions.
Before you jumped in there, I was going to ask a question, kind of going back to what we were discussing before. Do you think that there's a lack of... So, like, when you look at YouTube and you look at gaming reviews and you know, these channels that are promoted that way, do you think that there's a lack of independence in gaming reviews from a lot of these channels because they are paid and subscribed?
Yeah, there's a lot.
So you're not getting an honest review a lot of the time.
Yeah, you're going to watch Guerrilla Miniatures. Ash Barker used to work for Workshop for years. He's got his 10-year veteran certificate on the wall behind him in his little studio that he's got. And every review of a Games Workshop product's relatively glowing because at the end of the day, they're sending him stuff for free 2 months ahead of schedule. So you're going to get a very varnished view. You're not going to get an unvarnished view. and that's why it's important to look around at some of the more independent people doing different videos and different reviews. And when I'm looking around at reviews, I'll look at the people who've got 1 million views, and then I'll look down a little bit on some of the lesser reviews, because you're going to get a slightly better opinion if they're not going to be totally subverted by what they're being sent for free.
And we don't believe in product thingy in this thing, and that's not our view. That's the view of Vallejo airbrush thinner. Thin your airbrush with Vallejo.
Choose nothing else, kids, and remember, if it ain't Vallejo,
it's the taste of a new generation.
Don't drink it.
Do you think that
that's coming out next year? That's fantastic, and that has led me neatly onto the Dune board game. I think it's one of those where, I mean, you're going to get a little bit of that, but I think, to be fair, when we've looked at stuff, for example, we've been honest as well. There's things we've liked, we'll say we wish this was this, or this could be better. We're honest with it, and we go, it's nice, but we'll compare it to the other things that's out there.
Do you think that's a lot to do with the fact that most of the stuff that we've reviewed, and I know that we've been sent a few bits and bobs that we've not had to pay for, and we've reviewed those as well. But the majority of things that we've reviewed as a channel, we've bought. We've put money in our pockets and we've actually paid for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that I feel that the reason we haven't done as many reviews is because you can't afford to keep buying stuff at that rate to keep up and keep yourself, keep that relevancy.
Speak for yourself. I feel like I'm spending too much buying things.
I think the thing is, we fanboys, and I used the words vicarious and frivolous earlier, and I choose those words well. And the reason for that is because, we'll look at stuff and we'll buy anything. We don't need an excuse. We don't need to send through. We'll buy it. We want it. We'll get it because we like it. We like the look of it, and we'll take a punt on things. And some things we love, and some things don't pay off. That happens. There's games that some of us like, and some of us don't. Ben's not a fan of Hellboy. The rest of us love Hellboy. You love Blood Red Skies, Ben. I thought it was terrible. It doesn't let me detract from Warlord anymore. I think Warlord are a fantastic manufacturer. But it's one of those where we can be objective, and I don't think you get that enough. So you're right. I think when you look at channels where they've got a lot of subscribers, I don't have any kind of jealousy towards that. I think they've done really well because of who they are and what their content is. But by the same token, it gets to the point where it just becomes a proliferation of what's already out there and what people are sending them. It's just the way it is.
I think you've got to be. Depending on the different genres and what different collections, there are some people out there that run different channels and do get lots of kickbacks, but also purchase lots of stuff themselves, like we have to do, or rather we do. But there's a guy, and obviously this is not gaming, but it's another passion of my life, and he runs a channel called Sam's Trains. Now, he'll get sent new rolling stock, new model train stuff, and if it's rubbish, he'll slate it. He'll say, well, it's terrible, it doesn't run quick, its model and the detail's terrible on it. This company hasn't put any thought of it. It is a budget range, but it's still 80 quid. It's not really worth the money. You can get better by doing this. And I think he still gets stuff sent by the major companies as well, because they know that people will. There's like thousands of people that know they can trust him. So I think you're quite right. It's that fine line, isn't it, between being good to your sponsors, but by the same token saying, well, how much is my integrity as a reviewer worth? You know what I mean?
I'd love to be in that position to have that conversation.
I always make a point when we are filming stuff. So obviously, we've made no secret of the fact that Micro Art Studio have sent us a few bits and pieces recently, and we don't hide the fact, that when it's not paid promotion, because let's face it, we're not being paid to say nice things about it. They're sending us their kit to review because they like the way we do our reviews, and they know we'll appreciate it. But at the same point, I think if they sent us something that was terrible, I'd probably point it out, but I wouldn't just slate it on the channel. I would probably point it out to them as well, but we get stuff sent to us, and I think we're honest about it, but without kind of trying to push things to people just because someone's said we should. And I think that's the thing where some channels will get the because they're desperate for the sponsorship, they're desperate for getting the stuff. They'll say anything to kind of boost their views and likes and stuff, but also B to try and encourage people to send them stuff to say nice things. Whereas I think, as you say, we've got tons of stuff, and when we set this channel up, it was originally the idea to basically do what's best for what we consider was the average gamers, and that's giving them our advice and experience. We're not saying we're professionals at this. We're not like saying we know best because, but what we're saying is, in our opinion, as people who have got a lot of experience in this, that we've got a good idea, but at the same point,
I think as well as when you talk about even things when you mentioned Micro Art Studios, there, let's not forget, I picked up a pack of their bases from Salute, which started us looking at Micro Art Studios. And I think that's what we do. We quite holistically and organically trip over things, and it just builds into an interest where we're looking at and go, oh, that's really nice. Oh, but I wish they did that. And, I wasn't as impressed with that, but I thought this was really good. But check that out. That is fantastic. But
as Sven will testify, Asset Drop. The amount of stuff that I've had through Asset Drop, that I've found this new manufacturer and just got and kind of fallen in love with that set of product.
I got some of the in-star paints based on you getting that. Yeah, once again, I went to Salute the following year. You'd had that Asset Drop, and I picked up in-star paints. And I think it's that thing of viral marketing is quite interesting, but because viral marketing used to be our word of mouth, and it'll be a more word of mouth recommendation. And to be fair, I've had some terrible word of mouth recommendations. And someone who I knew from Workshop back in the day recommended the Army Painter paints to me, and I bought the Army Painter Mega Paint set, and I detested it with a passion. And it's one of the worst hobby purchases I've made in years. I gave all of those paints away by the inks, because the inks were fantastic.
That's because their inks are the inks and washes Army Painter are just gorgeous.
Brilliant, and the sprays are great, but the paints, just the mix, they're awful.
Again, and I know plenty of people that love Army Painter paints. I don't get on with them, and you don't. But again, maybe we're so used to painting in a particular way, kind of going full circle.
Absolutely.
We're used to paints having a certain formulation, and Army Painter don't fit within that formulation. Well, Vallejo are quite close to the formulation we're used to.
Yeah.
I like Vallejo paints for that.
Yeah, when Workshop was painting, when Coat d'Arms was Workshop supplier.
I love Coat d'Arms.
Oh, it's really, really good paint. It's fantastic paint.
It's so much like the old Games Workshop ones that actually, like the brown paints smell of chocolate.
Yeah, that's because Coat d'Arms, they supplied Workshop back in the day. That's exactly why. The old paint pots were Coat d'Arms paint pots. And then Workshop they moved up into their new formulations. They went into the hexagonal pots, which was a transfer up from Coat d'Arms. Then they went to manufacturing their own, which was terrible. So,
someone chop Lee's legs up.
Hey, sorry.
It's like a desk given birth.
But yeah,
I dropped something on the floor.
I think, but even things like that, when you look at like paints and like, would I recommend Army Painter? No. Would I recommend their washes? Yes. But by the same token, it's like I also recognise the fact that one of the reasons they might be quite good is they go quite nice over a white undercoat. They take a crap load of shaking, and you do need an agitator in those bottles, come what may, because the emulsion to pigment ratio is terrible. You have to shake them like hell to get the pigment out. And then if you add a little bit thinner to them, with great coverage over white and multiple layers of it, it'll be fantastic. So I can see why, like Jonas Fairings, who's an ex-Games Workshop painter, an ex-Gold Demon winner, why he's brought that paint formulation. But by the same token, I wouldn't buy them for wargaming purposes, yet that's who Warlord have jumped into bed with to do their paints for them. And I just can't imagine, because you're going to paint those figures generally over black, and a lot of wargamers will, or over browns or over greens, and I just can't see them getting the coverage they want.
Well, the only reason I started using Army Painter, fun enough, was because when I first started looking at painting up my Bolt Action US Airborne, I found a channel by a guy, I think he's called something like the War Painter or something like and
Yes.
he was
The
doing.
Wargamer.
It was something, and he was
Pete the
painting.
Wargamer?
I can't remember. He was painting the Lieutenant Spears model from like the limited edition one that Warlord did.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was, as I was saying before, he's one of these painters where it's like, here's how you do a pro paint job. Actually, it's like, it is probably a bit of technique, but there's also just a lot of skill there that he's got. But it was only because he then was talking about the military shader and the soft tones and stuff, and I thought, well, I'll give that a try. And the local shop stocks the army painter stuff, so I bought the strong tone, light tone, dark tone, and military shader, and after that I was sold. But then the army paint I've actually had, as Gary was saying, I just don't like them. And I've had paint out of Acid Drop that are the same, where I find them just the consistency's wrong. I can't quite use them as well as I can with like the Vallejo, and I find now some of the GW stuff is too thick. And I think Vallejo for me is like the right balance, but even like some Vallejo stuff I find too thin, and that's where I found with the Acid Drop there's been certain paints I've had out of there that I'm using in place of the similar colour from Vallejo. But yeah, I mean, I bought one of the big Vallejo paint sets ages ago, and most of it, like I've now got down to, it's like stripped me paint tray down to about 25 paints that I use regularly, and it's only when I go, I need a purple, I need to do some purple stuff, that I'll have to come to the actual big paint rack and find something now.
I do have a core range of paints that I use. I'll just drop stuff into it that I need that is specific. But I think it's entirely right. I think it's quite interesting. I think we've all got very approaches to painting, and we all get different effects. But ultimately, we get what we need from our painting. We do well enough, I think I'm having to adapt my painting style. I'm getting used to the fact that my eyesight isn't what it was. I use magnifiers all the time.
I started using. I got one of those magnifier set. Those headset magnifier things. And I tried that for the first time yesterday.
Yeah.
Gave me a massive headache. So.
It
get rid of that straight away.
I had to have. Sorry, I actually. It was the fact that I hadn't realised. I thought I wasn't getting worse at painting, and the reality was, it wasn't until my partner, she pointed out that maybe the first time ever in your life, because we made a joke about the glasses before, because typically in my family, including Sven, I've never worn glasses. Yeah, nice. I've never worn glasses until last year, and it was it wasn't until I realised that I actually needed the things. So that's it. It was a change for me. It was the fact that it was like a world,
These glasses are very focal, and I said this on the way down to Salute last year with the other guys who I game with, and they mercilessly ribbed me for about an hour about it. And I said that I do a lot of painting by feel. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, my eyesight's just thinking, my experience tells me I'm holding the brush right, I'm holding the model right, I've got to see the paint right. However, I just can't focus on that model, but I know where it is. So I'm painting by feel and by experience.
Is this why you paint your thumbnail?
Yeah, but I have to go to these when I want to get any kind of detail done, because otherwise I'm knackered. I'm absolutely knackered.
I know. I'm with you there, brother. I'm with you there. I think we've rambled on more than long enough there, haven't we?
I think we have.
I think we've gone slightly over time, as it were. That's been fascinating, actually. And I think, you should really start doing those painting tutorials while you've got a bit of time at home.
Yeah, when we're in lockdown, I'll make the effort.
I'd be quite interested to do a joint resin project with somebody if they were interested, or show them how to do a resin project if somebody was interested. I know I've done a couple for the channel so far, but
you've got another resin. You've got some more resin stuff coming up soon, haven't you? That you're planning.
I've got. This guy.
Just do a stage by stage.
Yeah, I'm actually not so much. This is essentially just one of like what are they called? Toy, things for the kids, educational toys for the kids. Yeah,
I know that. I've seen them.
Beautiful little shark. It's really terminally accurate for a great white. So I'm gonna obviously make it less detourify it. Going to repaint it, and I think I'm going to set it in a nice block of resin, rare, nice blue sea scene.
Cool. Well, yeah,
Cool.
put that together. Do it as a tutorial. Show people how to do resin stuff.
Yeah.
So
we'll probably wrap it up there then.
Yeah. We forgot to do this last week because we're kind of just rambling and it was a bit out of our comfort zone. But remember, we've got other social media channels, and I'll probably try and ping the link below.
I can't go all the way to the bottom of the screen. Gary, do it for me.
See, that didn't work because on the screen that everyone at home seeing Gary's at the top. So
I'm at the bottom.
No, me and Ben are at the bottom, so it'll be along underneath me and Ben here.
Oh, right. I'll do that then.
Hello.
So check out our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and if you want to listen to this rather than thing, I mean, if you got this far through, you've already listened to it all. But if you want to listen to it back on the bus or something, go to the SoundCloud, which I'll also try and put in the description below, because we're going to start doing some more audio stuff maybe in the future. Now we can do these things. And yeah, so just go and check out our other social medias. And our other videos as well. We've rambled on about a lot of stuff here that we've already covered or we've shown off in other videos. So go back and watch the back catalogue.
Yeah, loads of stuff that we've done, including our almost world famous thousands upon thousands upon thousands of reviews of the cracking game You've Got Crabs.
Yeah, go and add more into that, since that just seems to be the one thing that seems to prop our views up on the channel.
I think it's maybe because people they're searching for something else.
Well, You've Got Crabs, it seems.
You don't do that on YouTube. Right, okay, let's sign off. I was Ben.
I was Gary.
I was Lee.
And I'm still Sven. So from us here at the Average Tabletop Gamers, this has been the second episode of the Average Lockdown Cast. So we'll see you very soon.